Hey, Wrestling fans, this is Birdman Coca Beware, and you listen to the Card Subject to Change podcast. That's right, you don't want to miss it, and I guarantee you, you can't beat it with a stick, you can't whip it with a switch. Don't even try!
Welcome back to the show!
Welcome back to the show!
You know, the custody. God, I can't believe we're saying this. I mean, what do you drop that suitcase with as a big chicken nugget? If you want to go ahead and make it right for Dominic, since he likes chicken nuggets or whatever, he has got to be the most
briefcase full of chicken fingers.
Yeah, there you go.
And then that's when I found ECW, and RVD changed my life. I actually saw a clip of the Van Terminator, and I remember the hype going into, I think it was like 2000. I remember the hype going into a heat wave that RVD created this new move, and it did not disappoint. It was amazing. and the Van Terminator alone was the reason why I actually pursued professional wrestling.
Just, it blows my mind. And I'm like tugging on my mom's pants and stuff, and I'm like, Mom. And she's like, yeah, what? And I go, I want to do that. And I'm like pointing at the TV. Well, she looks and she goes, oh, you want to be like Macho Man and wear the cool sunglasses and say, oh, yeah, and do the elbow drop? And I go, no, I want to be the guy throwing snakes at people.
Yeah.
And now, your hosts of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the For Frequency's Sake Tag Team Champions of the World, the Wizard CZ, and never wrong, Nick Bull.
We're on live now. I was acting like I was getting introduced. Welcome.
Were you trying to do a pose off?
Brother. Hello, one and all, and welcome to another exciting edition of the Card Subject to Change podcast. Of course, it's the podcast by the fan, for the fan. We are powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan and Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial. I am, of course, never wrong, Nick Bull. With me is my tag team partner, the one, the only, the Wizard CZ.
What is up? What is up? I'm feeling magical tonight, Nick. How are you feeling?
Magical, yeah, maybe. Could be a little bit of both. I'm feeling good. It's exciting time to be a wrestling fan. Of course, we're post SummerSlam. Next week's show will be focused on All In. So we got a chance to get away from covering live events this weekend and went back and covered something that was very pivotal in the early part of the 2010s, CZ, a big part of the wrestling world. Which we'll get to here in a little bit, but we also brought along somebody else to help break down the action for us, CZ.
We did. He is the kingpin of For Frequency's Sake, the podcast network that graciously hosts us. One of the two people who this would not be possible, Card Subject to Change, without. Let's bring him on, Mr. Doug Green. Doug, how are you, sir?
Doing good, guys.
You're looking good too, Doug.
Thank you.
Looking good, man. Welcome back to the show.
Did you want an intro like ours at the beginning of the show, Doug? I can try it again if you want.
No, that was great. I might need one for the WNBA show for something like that. No, that was great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, we have a friend here tuning in real quick, Joe Monroe, the Joe Monroe Show. Wait, is this the show that just got 600 followers? We did, and we couldn't have done it without you. Thank you so much. We are very appreciative of all our fans. Make sure you hit that like, follow, and subscribe button. Leave a review if you like it. That's great. If you don't like it, hey, that's great too. We want to hear from you. We won't censor anybody here. We're glad to have everybody tuned in here. And Wiz, I'm going to let you explain the homework assignment since you are the Wiz. That we gave Doug and we gave ourselves for this week's episode to talk about on this part 2 of the Booger Eater's Guide to Wrestling.
And I will in just a second. I wanna bring up something that we posted on Facebook. We're not going to do it right now. You have to stay tuned until the end of the show. But since we hit 600 followers over the weekend here, we are going to have a big announcement about upcoming content for Card Subject to Change. But we're not doing it yet. You
I'm so
gotta
excited.
stick
I
around
forgot
for
about that. That's right.
it. Yeah, you're all hyped up.
I
But
am.
no, we are going all the way back to 2011 WWE. I'm excited. This was one of my favorite times. In the first, we're covering a promo and 3 main events, 2 on pay-per-views, 1 on Raw. And this is one of those pay-per-views is my one of my all-time favorites. It's not the top of the list, but it's definitely up there. And of course, if you're tuned in and you know about 2011, you know that we are talking about WWE's Summer of Punk, where CM Punk threatened to leave the company with the WWE Championship should he win the match. And that's what we're talking about. We're going to jump right in, and I'm going to ask you, Doug. First thing I had you watch was the infamous Pipebomb promo, as it's called, Monday, June 27th on Monday Night Raw. Tell us your thoughts.
Initially, I was kind of like, why is this guy up here just like whining and complaining? But that is, I know, part of the shtick in there. But it was a little bit kind of jarring not being, watching these things kind of without a lot of other context going on too. Kind of made it a little weird. But I was like, okay, so clearly they're setting this up for something, and then judging by what CZ had told me I had to watch, I kind of guessed kind of the way that this was all gonna play out. But it was interesting to see kind of the storyline and kind of how they decided what twists and turns they wanted to take in there.
Absolutely. And with that pipe bomb, always one of my favorites. I've quoted it on here a couple of times because I am the best at what I do in the studio, on social media, even on commentary.
What Doug, as an outsider looking in, was it hard to follow along with what he was complaining or bitching about? Could you see what he was complaining about and kind of see his side to it? Or was it hard to see that?
I think for me, it was hard to see that because I really didn't have like a lot of pre-knowledge of who he was or kind of what his thing. I don't know, if he was out there just beating everybody's ass or if he was, just the guy just running his mouth. Because honestly, sometimes it's 50-50 with those guys. But so yeah, there wasn't a lot of context for that. But obviously, he got his shot. And that was the thing that they wanted. So that's what he got.
A little context here, Doug. Before he joined WWE, he spent some time in Ring of Honor, which was the #1 independent promotion in the United States at the time. And while he was there, took his WWE contract and signed it on their title, kind of almost starting a riot amongst the fans. And this Summer of Punk is the second Summer of Punk ever. The other one was when he was with Ring of Honor, running roughshod over them, threatening to take Ring of Honor's title with them to WWE, the contract that he signed the belt on. So for the deeper dive fans, the fans that followed Ring of Honor, there was a connection to this Summer of Punk as well. But this is widely considered in the WWE as the Summer of Punk, this whole episode and this pipe bomb promo right here.
So was he a surprise to come out there, or was he somebody that they had been promoting and you'd been seeing up until this point?
He was someone that had been on the card. He had been on their roster. But what was surprising was the nature of the promo. And them, I thought, me as a fan, I knew what he was bitching about and all of his grievances. But for them, the WWE, to let him go out there and do that was a huge moment. Like, that was unheard of. We had never seen what they would call a shoot promo, where you're spitting real facts. You're talking about what's real. And then the fact that the WWE really didn't censor that was a big deal to fans at the time.
At least until the end where they cut him off.
What's that? I'm sorry.
I said at least until the end where they cut him off.
Now I gotta ask here. You watched the match leading into that, correct, Doug?
Yes, yeah. So I watched the John Cena match leading into that.
So, R-Truth, the gentleman that John Cena was facing, was a little bit crazy in that time. He had just come off a loss for the WWE Championship against John Cena at the last big event, the last pay-per-view. And this was kind of a rematch, only it wasn't for the title. R-Truth is known for saying that he got by Little Jimmy. And that's kind of hard to explain. Little Jimmy is this imaginary person that he thinks has a conspiracy going against him. But I got to ask, watching that match, did you feel like you got by Little Jimmy?
No, I don't think so. He says cautiously.
There's a great promo during that whole time where, and this is just a sidebar, where he comes out and Triple H is talking to him, and R-Truth is looking at the people behind him that are not really there. So Triple H does the same thing. He's talking to people who aren't really there, and Truth thinks he's nuts when thinks Triple H is nuts. That's neither here nor there. Having heard the Pipebomb promo and the things that he said, what are your thoughts? Because he had said some pretty inflammatory things, and that was the whole point, towards the owner of the company, towards the owner's daughter, towards her husband, Triple H. What are your thoughts on someone just going out there and waylaying the company that they work for?
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a big enough grievance, then, now typically you're not going to do that in your 9 to 5, but the rules do tend to bend a little bit for WWE. But some of the points that he made, I was like, yeah, if I'm a big draw and I'm not on the programs and I'm not on the cups and I'm not on the, I'm not getting t-shirt sales or whatever, I'd say he's got a legitimate gripe. And
DJ needs us to acknowledge him, Doug, because he says you're just here for the ice cream bars that CM Punk also mentioned doesn't have his face on them.
Yes. Which I didn't know was a thing, but definitely now that it is, I know that it is, that I won't. So
we're gonna get for frequency's sake ice cream bars, and we're gonna exclude the tribal chief DJ from them on purpose.
I like it a lot.
That's a good idea, man. We'd sell a bunch of those, I think.
I think so too.
Is there anything, Doug, from the promo? What's one thing that really stuck with you on the promo when he's out there airing his grievances? Is there one thing that he kind of said, you're like, whoa, he kind of went there?
Not so much. I was kind of expecting somebody to come out and run up on him, or maybe them to cut off the mic a little bit earlier or something. I was really what I was really surprised about was how long they let him go. To be quite honest, it was a good 5 minutes or something. He just kept going, and I'm like, that's why I kept waiting for somebody to come out and just whap him, because he just kept going, and I'm like, you would think at some point they're either going to, Triple H is going to come out and clothesline him, or they're going to cut off his mic long before that, or whatever. And it just didn't happen. Sure. So that was the surprising thing to me, was how long they let it go on.
And those of us who lived it felt the same way in the time, is that we're watching this and like, oh my God, this is going on forever. And they're not shutting him up. What is going on? Because we expected the same thing, 13 years ago?
Yeah, the fact that the length in the content of what he said went on, and then the veiled comments that he had, the veiled, not so veiled comments at Vince, at Triple H, at Stephanie, and how they ran their company was kind of like, wow. I guarantee he's not the only person that's ever wanted to say that, but he's kind of being the person that is saying that. So I wonder how many other people, maybe that weren't fans of Punk that night, or that had worked with him, were fans of CM Punk that night for finally getting to air his grievances that I'm guessing a lot of other people had besides him. He was just the person that, got a hold of the mic to go out there and say it. So you got to think some other people felt the same way as him, fans and or workers at the same time.
Yeah, somebody obviously had a grievance as well to put the mic in his hands. He just didn't They just don't turn those things over to you. Well, maybe they do a little bit, but somebody has to give him the mic and turn it on and make it hot, let him go out there and talk. And so somebody else had agreed with him and had a beef that they wanted him to have.
For sure.
And this era of WWE, there wasn't a lot of unscripted promos. Vince was very much stick to the script. This is what you're going to say. Memorize it, do it, live it, or you're fired, basically. And this promo definitely did not feel like it was something that Vince would have scripted, and it felt real. That's what fans got really into, is the reality of the moment with this whole scenario.
Yeah, for Vince to kind of let his hands off the reins here and to let this happen, and he's allowing it to happen, and bad things are being said about him. It was a big head scratcher. Nobody knew at that moment, like, what's going on here? Nobody knew what to think, what to expect. This was something out of the norm. And you're right, CZ. Freedoms weren't given to people with a microphone. You had a script to follow and a message to get over. And this was off the radar. This is something we had never seen at this level before, with this much, pardon the words, piss and vinegar behind it. This was not a feel-good promo for the WWE. This was WWE primetime on their flagship show, Monday Night Raw. The longest episodic running television in cable history series. And you got a guy on there bashing everything about it, including all the people in charge. Like, yeah, we've seen Stone Cold Steve Austin kick the crap out of Vince and get physical with the boss, but this was a little bit different. Like, everybody wanted to do what CM Punk did, where they got to sit there and air their grievances with a hot mic and not get cut off. I mean, it kind of, people got behind it. Like, maybe didn't get behind what exactly he was saying, but what he was believing in. And it kind of started a movement, I believe. So, like, you pin people's fandom to CM Punk, all the people who never seen him before WWE, and they're immediately going to say pipe bomb, pipe bomb, pipe bomb. He was the first person to speak up and say those things that maybe others wanted to say, but he was willing to do it and get it over as a character.
And of course, this all led to the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, which is the next thing that we've all watched. Not the whole show, but the main event. The premise around Money in the Bank, the ongoing storyline. Will CM Punk resign? At the end of the night, at midnight Eastern Standard Time, CM Punk, is he going to stay with the WWE? Is he going to have the WWE Championship? Is he going to take it with him when he leaves? That is the big question and the big moment of what's going on. Doug, talk about your feelings, what you thought about that whole story where you've got a guy going for the championship and he's threatening to walk out with the main title.
Yeah. At this point, going into it, I was like, okay, I can see both ways that they can do this. I can see them saying, because as you mentioned the last time I was on the show, things will go the way they want the story to go. So do they want the story to go where he wins the title and jets, because that's dramatic and interesting? Or are they going to play up Cena and let him be the hero that saves WWE? So that was kind of the two tracks that I was kind of trying to watch and see which way they wanted to go with those. And then, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth in the match of, got it for 2 count, got the other guy for 2 count, back and forth, back and forth. And then, obviously, what goes down at the end goes down at the end. Punk wins, runs off, gets the belt. And then Vince comes out and then calls in whoever won Money in the Bank. I can't remember who won that and says, get his ass out here to have him cash it in right now, to try and save the whole thing. At which point Punk bolts through the crowd in his hometown, which, again, the story plays the way they want the story to play. putting it in Chicago, in his hometown, where he'll be protected by, you know, his kinfolk. You know, that's kind of a nice kind of way to kind of do that. So I like the fact that they did it that way. I think letting Cena be the hero would be a little bit too generic. I did like the fact that he got out and gave that tension, which then led to the next match of, okay, now we've got 2 belts. How do we unify those things? You know, so I thought that was good. I thought that was a good story choice.
And I don't want to speak for Nick, but at the whole time this was going on, with as prominent as the internet was, it felt very much like nobody knew, did he resign? Did he not resign? Now, for us smart marks, as the internet likes to call them, we pretty much had an idea that if he walked away with the belt, he re-signed with the company. But that not knowing in the moment, even because, you know, you look at the reason I bring that up, you look at contracts now, you can go online, you can find anybody's contract and when it's going to expire. You may have to do a little digging, but it's out there. Am I wrong, Nick?
Nope, you're right. You're right.
But like right back in this day, contracts weren't as openly put out there. You didn't know when someone was going to be re-signed, when someone was going to leave the company. And that was a really big deal. Doug, I want to get your thoughts on the match itself and some of the key moments in the match. Particularly, so give you a little bit of a history lesson before I ask this question. 1997, Montreal, Quebec, Canada, Survivor Series. Bret the Hitman Hart, who is from Montreal,
Calgary,
got screwed
Alberta.
out of the. Okay, you're right. I'm sorry. From Canada, let me rephrase. From Canada, in his home country, got screwed out of the WWE Championship. And when Vince came out, he was very much trying to repeat this. The bell was rung early before there was a tap out in Montreal, and you get the same vibe. Oh, Vince is coming out to screw CM Punk. What were your thoughts when Vince first came out?
Wasn't surprised to see him, to be quite honest, just because of the way that it's all going to go down. And then at that point, it was, you know, he's won the title. Here comes Vince, and I'm like, okay, is he going to sign the contract and everything's going to be hunky dory? Is it going to be, you know, or are they going to go the other way and he's going to shit talk him somewhere? And so again, those are the kind of the 2 tracks that I was kind of looking for there. Obviously, he said adios. Vince tries to do the emergency, you know, get the other guy out as quickly as he can. But at that point, it's too late. So that was kind of the surprise. Now, they didn't talk about it on the broadcast about, you know, screwing him over. I mean, obviously that's in the playbook. Wasn't something I really kind of considered. I mean, yes and no. I felt like the match was officiated more towards kind of Cena's way a little bit, but that could have been just bias. I don't know. But for me, that was that was kind of the they wanted to build that tension. They wanted to build that drama in my mind. Then when we're there, but I wasn't surprised to see Vince. No, when he came out, the surprise was which way they were going to go once Vince came out.
Yeah, I remember seeing Vince come out and had flashbacks to the Montreal Screwjob because he's done it before. What's not to believe he's done it again? And if he'd done it in, you know, Bret's home country of Canada, why wouldn't he do it in Punk's hometown of Chicago? So like that would have been nuclear if he did that. I believe that place would have rioted. That place was so hostile. The fans really came that night and were loud all night long. That makes it one of the more cool environments you'll see for a big time match and a big time story. Of course, the stars aligned with CM Punk, Chicago taking the belt and leaving. I want to go back to a point CZ said earlier. There wasn't anything on the internet about him resigning at that time. There was nothing. Nobody knew. And for somebody to leave the company with a belt, it's kind of like the big no-no in wrestling. Like, if you're going somewhere else, you drop the belt, you go out on your shield, you pass it off to the next guy. That's kind of like tradition. And here we have this guy who's going to possibly break tradition. And of all the traditions he's going to break are Vince McMahon's. Like, this was pretty big at the time. You find out later he re-signed the contract like 3 days prior. But it still doesn't take anything away from me because the environment was perfect. The show was excellent. Cena's an all-timer. And then Punk, fulfilling his prophecy and doing what he said he was going to do and take that belt and leave. And you get one of the most iconic images of recent WWE years when he hops that rail and blows the kiss to Vince McMahon like that. People remember that. And that was the look on Vince's face. I mean, I'm not going to talk about what's going on with Vince currently, but Vince as a character back in the 90s, early 2000s is one of the best characters there ever was for being a heel, a bad guy. People hated him. People wanted to see him get his butt kicked. People hated him. I thought his face of disbelief, like a kid who gets his toy taken away from him and he's not getting it back, like that to me was what really put this over the edge, was like Vince's involvement. Had Vince not been involved, I don't think it's as big as it is, in my opinion, CZ. Like, I think he had to be involved because people wanted to see him get humiliated. People wanted to see him get his, and that night he got his.
And I want to talk a little bit about John Cena in this match. And just as a whole, Cena's been in hostile environments at least 2 times, like this hostile of an environment 2 times in his career. The first one was it 05 or 06? I think it was 05, right?
It was 06.
One night stand?
It was 06, the second one night stand.
06. Okay.
Yep.
ECW had been brought back by WWE, and they were in the old Hammerstein Ballroom, one of ECW's one of their prominent venues, and Cena was in a very hostile crowd. But the point that I want to make, the hostile crowds seem to bring out the best in John Cena, because the match at One Night Stand, the match at Money in the Bank, those can be considered 2 of Cena's very best matches. I mean, Cena is known for his 5 moves of doom. That is one of the things that people criticize him about, is he only does 5 moves and then the match is over. This match, he really brought it out. He pulled out some moves that you don't often see him do, especially going to the top rope. It was a great match and it was well put together. But to your point, Nick, going back to what you were saying, if Vince McMahon hadn't been involved, this wouldn't have had as big of an impact on the wrestling world.
Right, because I don't think the fans particularly hated John Cena here like they did in that ECW match at One Night Stand. I think they hated him because he was Vince's champion at the time. I think they would have hated whoever was Vince's champion. It just happened to be John Cena here, but that's why John Cena is one of the all-time greats. That's why he can be discussed with any Mount Rushmore there is out there. The guy came and performed when it was the chips and cards were stacked against him. He's one of the all-time greats, and he just shows why in this match here. This match, Doug, was rated a 5-star match by Dave Meltzer. I know Dave Meltzer probably means nothing to you. He's like the number 1 wrestling journalist and gives out his star ratings, and a 5-star match is a perfect match. So this match received a 5-star match, and he didn't give WWE a lot of 5-star matches and still doesn't. So I think the atmosphere really did have a lot to do with it. But these 2 guys are pros. These 2 guys know what they're doing in there, and they know how to put on a good show. And they definitely did. They definitely put on a good show in Chicago that night.
Yeah, the place was electric. You could tell that. I mean, even watching it a decade later, you could tell that was a big place to be that night.
Yep.
And I think Jerry Lawler described the fans best in a way that what you can relate to, Doug. I don't know if you remember this line, but he said, "This is like the Chicago Bears being in the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl being held at Soldier Field."
I think I do remember him saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, big time event. And this story continues. But before we continue on, we have to pay dues to our sponsors and our other shows on the network, which, Doug, I want you to promote your show after, because I know that DJ didn't include it in the promo.
Ooh.
Shots fired, Tribal Chief. But you are tuned into Card Subject to Change, the podcast by the fan for the fan. We are powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and of course protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial. We're going to take a quick time out, and we'll be back on the other side of the break. And when we come back, we'll have our weekly moment of focus.
Football season may be over, but for frequency's sake, still has you covered for all your sporting needs. Tune in every Sunday when the best professional wrestling podcast around, Card Subject to Change, gets you caught up on everything inside the ropes. They won't miss a count with weekly analysis and interviews. More into auto racing? We've got a double dose for you on the track. Tune in to Fast Money with Rod Villagomez each week and win some money with the quickest bets in all of sports. Want more insight from Pit Row? Check out the Green, White, and Checkered podcast, where they give their insight on everything happening on and off the track. Need your basketball fix? Points in the Paint has you covered, with live shows every other week looking at everything in the association. Backed by popular demand, we have the return of The Payoff Pitch, FFSQC's baseball show, covering you on news around the MLB. If you're missing football, don't fret. Mark and Dan still have you covered in the football lounge. Missing Joe Winkle? Probably not, but he's still here talking sports on Educated Ignorance. Football season might be over, but we've still got you covered. For frequency's sake, you know what we mean.
For frequency's sake is brought to you by Durham Remodeling, serving the Quad City area's remodeling and repair needs since 1973. Clint's Draft House, grab a bite and a pint. 7th Street, Moline. Low Pies, New York-style pizza served up by the slice or pie, Davenport. Lifted Energy, energy drinks, coffee, donuts, and more. #GetLifted. Atomic Sports Cards and Collectibles. Sports cards and memorabilia, vintage clothing, hats, pennants, and more. Ryan Allison Tattoo. Step into the vibrant world of tattoos with Ryan Allison. And A Cut Above, offering quality custom woodwork designed specifically around our customers.
Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You are watching the Card Subject to Change podcast, the podcast by the fan for the fan. We have Doug Green on as our special guest this week. Doug is here repping the network, but of course has a show that he is currently doing right now. I always read it as watching the dub. It comes across as watching the W, but I read it as watching the dub. Is that okay, Doug?
That's fine. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, whenever I see I'm like, watching the dub. Tell us about your show that you have on the network right now. It's fairly new to the network, and it's all about the WNBA.
Yeah. With the big influx of viewers and watchers of the W this season, we decided that we needed a WNBA show. There's been a lot of interest in the women's basketball scene here in the last couple of years with Caitlin Clark's meteoric rise to superstardom. As she moved from Iowa into the WNBA, she brought a lot of fans with her, and we felt it was a good opportunity to kind of jump on that bandwagon and play. So I said, hey, I want to do this. Dan Hancock, I don't know if he's been on you guys' show, but he's usually our betting guy. Yep. He's been watching the WNBA for a few years, so he agreed to come on with me as kind of the veteran, and I play the role of the rookie. And we kind of every week we take a look at the things that have happened and the things that are coming up and kind of discuss some of the big stuff that has happened. So things like the All-Star game, big performances, all that kind of stuff. So it's been a fun time. It's hot and heavy now. They just came off of the Olympic break. The trade deadline is Tuesday, so that is a big story. And then obviously they've got the playoffs will start in October, so they'll have the rest of August and September for the regular season. Then playoffs will start in October, and we'll have a new champion by Thanksgiving, maybe by Halloween. So very exciting time. It's been a fun ride here. Doing this for the first season. You guys remember how the first season went for you? But
How it's still going.
but it's fun. And so it's a good time. We have some folks that chime in just like you guys do. That's what makes the show worthwhile. It's fun to get online and talk with folks while the games are happening. People are excited about cheering on their favorite players, and so it's a fun thing to just kind of have that back and forth.
Excellent, Doug. When can we watch watching the W?
Well, right now we're going Sundays at noon. As I was kind of discussing on the show this morning, as we get into football season, that's not going to work. So we'll probably be having to move the show to either Monday night or Tuesdays or something. But for right now, you can catch us on Sundays at noon Central. Obviously, we're on YouTube and all the podcast stuff that you guys are on. But, that's where you can find us currently.
Awesome. We do have our moment of focus, but before we get to that, Doug, I have a little more business to conduct with you here. We are, as you said, the football season is coming up, and I want you to talk about the Toys for Tots Football League that we put together every year.
Sure. So every year we do the Toys for Tots League. We started it, I think this is our fourth year doing it, fourth or fifth, fourth. But part of it was both DJ and I participate in what's called the Scott Fish Bowl. And for the folks that don't know, that is a nationwide, worldwide actually now, fantasy football league where they also donate money to Toys for Tots. It was started by a gentleman called Scott Fish, who's one of the OGs of the fantasy football industry. Takes not only the best and the brightest from the fantasy football world, but also you can compete as a normal person. So you guys, if you are fantasy football enthusiasts, sign up. He can select you and you can play against other industry analysts, which is great. We've been doing that for about 4 years and donating money. You guys went out with us last year to Walmart, spent the money. That's always fun. That's kind of our way to give back. That's always been one of our things that we wanted to do with the network was we wanted to give back, and the Toys for Tots is the way that we've done that. This year, this is where I'm going to get choked up. This year, we've added in divisions. We talked about last year about doing an Iowa versus Illinois thing. And then, unfortunately, we lost a couple of mentors to both DJ and I in the people of Steve Batterson and Steve Tapper. And so Bats worked with us at the Times. Taps worked with us at the Dispatch. So they are representing those two states. So if you win the Iowa division this year, you'll win the Steve Batterson Trophy. If you win the Illinois division, you will win the Steve Tappa Trophy. So that is the way that we're kind of honoring those two men this year. Probably carry that on going forward.
Absolutely. And I would be remiss if I didn't remind everybody there is still a little time to sign up. But the sign-up period is closing soon. Card Subject to Change does have representation in the league by our good friend, the one called Manders. He is hosting one of the leagues. And believe it or not, Doug, I'm taking your role. I am actually playing this year. And I know absolutely nothing about anything football related. So this is going to be interesting. And I think DJ's trying to talk me into doing some kind of short video every week or something. I don't know. We're still working that out. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this goes for sure.
I think we can do something like what you guys do with me with this, where we bring you on, maybe here the next week or two with a quick, what do you know and what do you think this is going to be like, and then bring you on at the end with a how did it go and how did it compare and contrast versus what your expectations were. I think that'd be a couple of good ways to do that, because weekly is really kind of tough, especially when you get into the dog day grind of weeks 8, 9, 10, 11, and everybody's on bye, and you're like, how the hell do I set this lineup? When it gets frustrating, that's not going to be as much fun to kind of TikTok about as it is kind of beginning and end, where you can kind of have more of a holistic view.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. That sounds great. That being said, gentlemen, it is time to toss things over to our good friend and yours, except for Timothy Regal, Mr. JT Energy, and here he is with our moment of focus.
Uh-oh, you know what time it is. Even you, Timothy Regal, listen up. It's time for a moment of focus with the feline phenom, JT Energy. And what are we focusing on today? Let me tell you what we're focusing on. Choices. Yeah, everything in your life, listen up, everything in your life before this moment, right here, right now, your choice. When this ends, every moment after this, your choice. Don't be afraid to make those decisions. Don't be afraid to change your life whenever you want to. Don't be afraid to be authentically you and choose right. This has been a moment of focus with the feline phenom, JT Energy.
Was that the roar of a tiger or a lion there?
I couldn't tell which, but yes, very much so.
It startled me.
I was watching you down in our little monitors. That is the first. That is the first time he has brought a roar into this, and I wonder if he was inspired by his friend Jared Thumb Thumb doing that. You can see it on one of our reels on Facebook and YouTube, talking about him singing "We Are the Tigers." I'm not going to go into it. If you know, you know. So the next thing we had you watch, I was mistaken. I thought there was an actual promo with this, but the main event, it was July 25th, 2011, if I'm remembering the date without looking at it. You come into that night of Monday Night Raw, and there had been a tournament to crown the new WWE champion in the weeks built up. Rey Mysterio wins the tournament. However, John Cena comes in, Triple H comes in for John Cena and says, hey, he never had his rematch. He gets it tonight. We're having two WWE title matches tonight. One at the beginning, one at the end. The moment to focus, no pun intended, the moment to focus on with this is after the match. Cena, of course, wins his 11th WWE Championship at the time. And shortly after he wins, right out the gate, here he comes, making his big return, one CM Punk. Doug, what are your thoughts on this moment here as he makes his big return?
Yeah, obviously, like we talked about, they're looking to build the drama. For you, I guess I'm going to ask you guys a question back. At this point, did you guys have an inkling that he was going to come back? Was that something that was like in the wind and in the tea leaves, or was this completely like, completely out of left field?
I think we knew he was going to come back. We just didn't think it was going to be this quick.
Okay.
We figured we'd see him down the road, but not the way they brought him back. So it was, I don't want to say it was a surprise, but it was kind of a surprise. You knew he was coming. You just didn't know how soon.
Right. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. And that was kind of the vibe that he gave. Yeah, he was unexpected, but not unexpected. I think the way that Nick described it was exactly that. They're like, who's that? Oh, yeah, of course it's him. Kind of reaction.
And of course, this was the iconic debut. I don't know if you caught, if you were paying attention close enough to entrance musics while you were watching the things going on, but he had a different music when he came out at Money in the Bank than when he did here. This was the iconic debut in WWE of Cult of Personality, which is synonymous with CM Punk nowadays.
Yeah, I didn't catch that. I wasn't that dialed in. I missed who he was wrestling. I had to rewind it to find out that it was Rey Mysterio. I figured it was Rey Mysterio because there's not a lot of guys with the Lucha Libre masks running around, but right. I had to back it up to make sure that it wasn't somebody that I didn't know.
Question for the both of you, Nick. You being a wrestling, I don't want to say expert. Neither one of us are experts, although I think we come rather close. And for you, Doug, as a wrestling novice, did this need to have any words? Was it done right with just the stare down at the end of the night and them holding the titles up, or would it have been better served if they had gotten on the mic and said something before the show closed?
I would say no. I liked it that they didn't say anything and just kind of gave it the stare. I think if you would have given the CM Punk "I'm back, bitches" kind of speech, I think that would have been a little too cheesy and over the top. I think that it was right on with just the, I got a belt. You want to fight? Okay, kind of stared at it.
Doug may be a wrestling novice, but Doug is quickly learning in the wrestling world that less is more. That's all they needed to do. That would keep the wrestling world talking for another week until next week's episode. I'm in the same boat as Doug here. If they would have started promoing on each other, I feel it would have taken away from the moment. I feel the moment was perfect enough. No words spoken. Actions speak louder than words. They're both showing you I'm the champ. No, I have the belt. I'm the champ. No words spoken. Plenty of words spoken, though. And I thought they hit it right on the head.
Well, you know what they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and that definitely was a picture worth 1,000 words. I'm in, I'm in complete agreement with the both of you. I just wanted to play devil's advocate and get the opinions out there from someone who's watched for a long time and someone who is new coming into the wrestling world.
Well, great minds think alike.
Well, of course.
No, they hit it out of the park with this, and it got you pumped. It got you pumped and ready for next week and what was on the horizon and how are these two going to settle this. So it was perfect.
And that brings us to the main event of this show and the main event of the next pay-per-view event, and that is SummerSlam. Obviously, the big draw here is CM Punk versus John Cena Part 2, and who is going to be not just the WWE Championship, but a word they throw around, I honestly think a little too often, but it's a word that's used nonetheless, and that is the undisputed WWE Championship. Before we talk about any of the match and any of the goings on, Doug, did you have an inkling as to who was going to walk out with the undisputed title?
I really didn't know. Like I said, I can see it kind of going either way. Though I did text CZ when I started it, and I said, Triple H is reffing this match. There's going to be shenanigans. He's like, oh, yeah.
Yep. Hey,
so I saw that coming a mile away. But I wasn't sure what the shenanigans were, but I was in for it. I was down for it.
Even though you're a novice fan, Doug, you can see it a mile away. When there's a special ref, there's going to be shenanigans. That's good. That's good to see that.
Yeah, I thought maybe the match went on a little long. It was too many, 2 counts and a kick out, 2 counts and a kick out, back and forth. I was like, okay, get to it. We know this is going to tie up, get to the point kind of thing. So I felt like some editing could have been used there. That's just the copy editor and me going. It was a 20-minute match. You could have taken it down to 15 and gotten the same effect. In my mind. But other than that, both guys got their chance to shine. I think the way that it ended was good. I like that. So I thought it was a good match overall.
And I think CM Punk needed to win that match to kind of solidify everything that happened in Money at the Bank. I think it made him a bigger star for that fact. I think I don't know if he would have gotten swept to the wayside if that hadn't happened the way it went down, but I feel like he wouldn't have been as big if he didn't walk away the undisputed champion, at least from that match, because what happened immediately after, when Kevin Nash comes out, waylays him. We find out later this was kind of a plot from Triple H, if I'm remembering history correctly. but that's not. Triple H is looking around like, what the hell's going on? He has no clue in the moment. But that attack from Kevin Nash allows Alberto Del Rio to come in and cash in the Money in the Bank and ultimately walk away with the undisputed WWE Championship for the end of SummerSlam.
Yeah,
I want your thoughts on that, Doug. Oh, go ahead, Nick.
No, go ahead, Doug. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I like I said, it was enough of that curveball there at the end, because you really kind of felt that it was going to be, one of the two guys, at least from the novice end of it. I was like, I see him. Okay, yeah, you bring Punk back in the fold. It's all, everybody's all happy and all those types of things. So that they're throwing the curveball of the Money in the Bank guy coming running in. Because, I didn't know he may have cashed that in, a week ago or 2 weeks ago or some point in between, because I wasn't watching every week, so I didn't know whether that had happened or not. So the fact that he came in and cashed that in, I thought was a nice little curveball in there. The question I would ask you guys, and just kind of piggybacking off of what CZ said there, at this point, I would say for them picking Punk to take the title, for it to play out for him, when you were saying that lifting his boat, is it because you think that Cena has kind of reached, and I don't know, but I'm just kind of asking this question, have he kind of reached his end, like he couldn't be any bigger? So we've already got this guy who's huge, who's, mainstream culture kind of a name. Why not bring up the next guy? And then you have two big names as opposed to one giant name and one C-lister as a type thing.
And we usually refer to that as a passing of the torch. It definitely felt like that kind of moment, like Cena giving CM Punk the nod and we call in the business the rub, so that he would get to that next level. Nick, what are your thoughts on that?
I think the move, the word that I think of, it solidifies. It solidified Punk as a big time player. Before this feud with John Cena, before this mic or this pipe bomb, he had a pretty successful career over on SmackDown, the other WWE show. He had won a couple Money in the Banks. Punk won back-to-back Money in the Banks. He was a multiple-time world heavyweight champion. He had just never won the WWE championship until that Money in the Bank moment. So I think by him winning it over Cena, by him defending it and retaining against Cena, looks much better than him dropping it back to Cena. Good point there by Doug. Cena's already well established. The loss won't hurt Cena. At this point, the loss could have hurt Punk. Cena more established. So I see why they did it. I think they did it the right way. Have Punk win. But then in Punk winning, you close the door on him and Cena, and you really close the door on it by bringing in Alberto Del Rio to win the WWE Championship. And by the way, this is so weird and ironic. Alberto Del Rio, who now goes by Alberto El Patron, just won the AAA Mega Championship last night at their big Triple Mania pay-per-view. So the stars aligned that we were talking about Alberto Del Rio cashing in 2011. He just won AAA, which is Mexico's biggest promotion. He just won their main championship last night. So, but yes, I think they did it right. Cena was more established. Punk becomes a bigger name. And then you spring up Alberto Del Rio on him, and boom, you got new stories.
How long did Del Rio hold on to the title after that night? Do you remember?
It's a good question. I'm going to look. See, we openly reference, Wikipedia on this show, and
I just wasn't sure if it was a one and done thing, or if they let him hang on to it for a little while to build a little more drama.
I think he held on to it for a while.
I think it was at least a couple months, because I remember CM Punk getting the title back at one point, if I'm remembering correctly. But Nick, I'll let Wikipedia.
I'll look it up. You continue, and I'll find it.
So, Doug, I'm going to ask you here. We've gone through every homework assignment we gave you for this one. What are your thoughts overall on the summer of Punk?
it was an interesting little storyline. Like I said, there was definitely kind of two clear tracks that it could take, and I felt like they chose the more interesting one, which I think is good. Obviously, we wouldn't be talking about this if this wasn't the more interesting track. But I found the story compelling, if nothing else. I liked it. It was kind of a, I believe in them coming back type thing. That always kind of draws me in. So I did kind of like the storylines that went along with it, and some of the side characters. One of the things I did want to ask, since Nick had mentioned it, he used the word rivalry with Cena. And I didn't really get the gist that it was bad blood between CM Punk and Cena. My feeling was that Punk's problem was with the corporation itself, and Cena just happened to be the guy in his way.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. I did just get word from our tribal chief. I'm going to let you reveal when Alberto Del Rio lost the belt, and then I'll go ahead and tell, because DJ, very knowledgeable, very helpful, talked about CM Punk's next run as the champion. But
Okay.
Nick, when did Alberto drop the belt?
Well, when Del Rio won the belt from Punk at SummerSlam, he became the first Mexican-born WWE champion, which was a pretty big deal. He kept the belt until September, lost it to Cena, but got it back from Cena. Got it back from Cena by beating Cena and Punk in a Hell in a Cell match. He then held it from like October until early December, and then that was all for that run.
And was it CM Punk that won it off of him in December?
Yes.
That was the beginning of CM Punk's historic 434-day reign as WWE champion.
And then the night after he dropped it to Punk, he suffered a torn groin and was out for 6 weeks. You got to remember, Del Rio won the Rumble that year. So he won the Rumble. He won Money in the Bank. He was in line for a big push, as they say, Doug. So him cashing in there was kind of like the perfect time for him to do that and push him on his push then. So, yeah, I liked reading more and more about that. It'd been a while since I went back and knew what happened to the belt after this historic night at SummerSlam. I'm glad we went and looked. But I totally forgot about Alberto Del Rio's run and what kind of year he had in 2011.
Very good year for him, and very polarizing wrestler is Alberto Del Rio, particularly after he left the WWE. Got in a little bit of a hot water and became kind of a, sorry, I'm just going to use the term, became kind of a shitheel for a while. But very accomplished star and probably well-deserved, even though, not even though, well-deserved for him to have that championship when he did, in my opinion.
For sure. I don't think WWE looks back on it and goes, oh, we really messed that up. No, I don't think they ever would have changed anything with how they did it. I think they did it right. And despite the trouble he got into later in his career, but he's resurrected it now. I don't think it's a regret on any front. Del Rio was an accomplished wrestler. He's a good wrestler.
He really is. He really is. And it was good to see him with the title. And this whole story was just a lot of fun. And I, for one, am glad we got to relive it. We kind of let our followers on Facebook vote as to what we were going to watch with Doug this time around, although this is what we really had kind of leaned towards when we first brought back the Booger Eater's Guide to Wrestling concept, which I want to do more often. And I know Nick has another friend who's a wrestling novice, so we may bring him on, give him a shot. But Doug, we want to definitely have you back more often and do some more of this in-depth reviews of some of the older stuff. And there's a lot of things out there that I think we could have good conversations about.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you guys know I'm down. It's always a good time. So
my favorite thing about this, like I say to other people when we do other shows, my favorite thing is to have somebody on here new before we've never had and to talk wrestling with them and to get what they like to talk about. I like having you on, Doug, and having this segment and this show that we do because I love hearing just the common questions you have, like, why are they doing this here? And stuff that we normally would just pass over sticks out with you and it like breaks it down and makes you understand it a little better. So I love hearing the questions that you have by watching it. Like, this is like school. No question's a bad question. It's good to ask questions, and I love the questions that you have. That's what I look forward to the most.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's kind of the fun part too. It's like it's something that I'm not used to watching. It's not football, it's not baseball, it's not basketball. It's not something I watch on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis. So it's a good little side quest to go on and be like, oh, here's these things, and let's see how all this plays out, because I don't know. So it's kind of fun to kind of see how things shake out.
Oh, for sure.
Definitely.
That's,
and I know I've got some other ideas as to what we can bring to the table for you here. And I think, Nick, I don't know how you feel, but I like putting those options out there for our followers, our listeners to vote on as to where we go. We come up with a few ideas and then we let the fans decide.
And I think we'll do that next time. The next time we have Doug back or have this conversation, we'll throw some options out there for the fans, because there's plenty of stuff in the world of wrestling to go back and track and talk about. And it's the podcast by the fan for the fan. If fans want us to cover something and go back and do it, we'll do it. So we'll give them the option. The power lays in their hands when it comes to this. I think that's a fun thing to attach to this, is let the fans vote it, and then we'll go back and break it down with Doug.
Yeah. Sounds like fun.
And speaking of fans, Nick, it's time. We promised an announcement. We're gonna pull it off now. We're gonna talk about what's coming up here. Nick and I are planning in early September. We're not exactly sure when we'll start. We're still discussing, but we are adding more content into the Card Subject to Change podcast lineup with a second show. It's going to be a lot shorter. We're going to recap and preview episodes because it's going to be in between our regular shows. But more importantly, we're going to have probably a 10 to 20 minute discussion about topics. And if you have any topic suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments here. Message me, message Nick, message the podcast page. We'll gladly take suggestions. But Nick, you came up with the name, so I'm going to let you reveal what this show is called.
Yeah, it's this new show. It's not going to take anything away from this show. It's probably going to be a supplement to this show. We will air it midweek in between shows. It's kind of going to be a little look behind the camera. It's going to be what we talk about after we get off the air with a guest. The random rumblings we have in our head. I mean, CZ and I talk wrestling all week on our message group, so it might be a little bit of that. It'll be promoting upcoming shows, talking about future interviews. But yes, in September, you will get another dosage of the Card Subject to Change podcast, except this one is called The Kickout, the last word in wrestling. Everything you need to know about what's going on, about what we're feeling, about things behind the scenes. If we don't get to them on this show, we'll get to them on The Kickout, and it's going to be a shorter episode, 10 to 12 minutes of us just rambling, but hopefully answering your questions and previewing the next episode for the show.
Absolutely. I'm excited. Should be a lot of fun. We are working on doing a lot more shorter content. If you've been following us on Facebook and YouTube, put out some shorts and reels this week. I'm going to continue to do that as much as I can when I have time to put them out, because we like giving you more content and we like hyping up all of our guests and all of our friends here who join us on Card Subject to Change, which includes you. If you are watching for the first time and you are not on our YouTube page, you can check out our full archive, over on YouTube at CSTC Podcast. Be sure to give us a subscribe, like, and follow. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. We're on X, formerly known as Twitter, which I know a lot of you are following us there. So thank you very much for tuning in. That is going to wrap things up for this episode of Card Subject to Change. For our guest, the For Frequency's Sake Podcast Network Kingpin Doug Green, for my co-host, Never Wrong Nick Bullen, of course, for our favorite segment, JT Energy with his moment of focus, I am the Wizard CZ. We will see you next week right here on Card Subject to Change.